There's a moment when you realize you don't control much. Not what people think, not how things turn out, not whether the world is fair. You can plan, you can hope, you can work hard. But none of those give you ownership of the outcome. And if you don't understand that, you'll spend your life angry at things that were never yours. That's where Stoicism begins. Not in coldness, but in clarity. This video is not about pretending you don't care. It's about learning how to care differently, to care with strength, instead of desperation, to stop trying to dominate the external and start mastering the internal. You will not learn how to control the world, but you will learn how to stop needing to. Through 5 Stoics, each one a mirror, each one a reminder that peace isn't earned through force, but through letting go. We begin not with a philosopher in a palace, but with a man who lived in a barrel. Diogenes, you only own what you can walk away from. You say you want control, but how much of your life depends on what other people do? Do you need them to like you, to understand you, to believe you're right, to approve? Diogenes didn't. He walked barefoot through the city, carried nothing, owned nothing. He begged for food, slept in public, mocked the rich, and still he was untouchable. Because Diogenes had nothing to lose, and no one could take anything from him. Alexander the Great, the ruler of the known world, came to visit him once. He asked Diogenes if there was anything he could give him, and Diogenes just said, "Yes, step aside, you're blocking the sun." That's control. Not because he owned anything, but because nothing owned him. Diogenes was not tame, he was fire. He spat on convention, laughed at luxury, rejected image, titles, and shallow virtue. He believed the world made people sick by teaching them to want what doesn't matter and fear what never mattered in the first place. He said, "He has the most who is most content with the least." What's the point of riches if they cost your freedom? What's the point of status if it traps you in performance? What's the point of control if it always lives somewhere outside yourself? Diogenes lived like this. If you can't walk away from it, you don't own it. It owns you. And maybe that's your starting point too. Before you try to master your emotions or change your habits or plan your life to perfection, ask, what do I think I need that I might be better off without? Control begins where addiction ends. You don't have to become like Diogenes, but you do have to ask his question. If the world fell silent, if the attention stopped, if the approval faded, would I still be enough? If not, then that's where the work begins. Epictetus, you are the judge, not the victim. Epictetus was born into slavery, beaten, owned, crippled in one leg. He had every reason to be bitter, but he wasn't, because Epictetus understood something most people never learn. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. The world will act. People will say things, accidents will happen, pain will arrive. But after that, there's a space, a quiet space. And in that space is your power. Not the power to erase what happened, but the power to decide what it means. They hurt you, okay? But what will you build from that? You lost something, okay? But what are you still holding? You're afraid. That's human. But will you stay there? We cannot choose our external circumstances, Epictetus said, but we can always choose how we respond to them. That's not philosophy. That's freedom. Because the world can take almost anything, but it can't take how you interpret what's left. You lose your job, and some people crumble. Others rebuild. You get rejected, some shrink, some sharpen. You face illness, some fall apart. Others rise deeper into their values. The difference isn't luck, it's judgment. Control, to Epictetus, wasn't something you hold. It was something you refuse to give away. You don't give it to anger. You don't give it to fear. You don't give it to public opinion or past regret or imagined futures that haven't even happened yet. You hold it silently, steadily, like someone guarding the door to their own soul. He taught students to say, in every difficulty, "Is this in my control?" If the answer is no dash, release it. If the answer is yes, respond with reason, not rage. That's not weakness. That's sovereignty. And you don't need a perfect life to find it. You just need that moment of space between what happens and how you meet it. This is the second kind of control. Judgment. Not over others, over your own mind. Your framing. Your story. Because stories shape pain, and stories can set you free. Marcus Aurelius. Hold the line. He was emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. And yet, he spent his nights writing to himself. Not speeches, not strategy, but reminders. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius wasn't writing to impress. He was writing to stay sane, to stay human in a world that asked him to be more than that, to stay centered while governing a crumbling empire, burying his children, fighting plague, facing betrayal, and watching the people he trusted fall apart. And somehow, he kept writing, kept thinking, kept choosing stillness. Marcus knew, power isn't what you can command. It's what you can control within. When everything outside goes wrong, he said, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. So what are you coloring your soul with? Panic, outrage, comparison, rehearsed arguments that never end? Or silence, presence, discipline? He didn't believe control meant calm all the time. He believed it meant returning to calm. Over and over again. When insulted, when tested, when life pulled you out of your rhythm, you return to it. The best revenge, he said, is not to be like your enemy. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. He wasn't trying to scare himself. He was trying to wake up, to act while he still had time, to be kind before it was too late, to think clearly before emotion took the wheel. That's the third kind of control, restraint. You don't need to feel good to do good. You don't need to be in control of others to be in control of yourself. The world will always pull. You hold the line, you journal, you breathe, you pause before you speak, you act without applause, you lead yourself, even when no one is watching. Because that's what Marcus did, and he ruled not just an empire, but his own mind. Seneca, control your inner weather. Seneca was a politician, a philosopher, a playwright, a survivor. He lived through exile, power, betrayal, and death sentences. And somehow, he kept his soul intact. not by denying emotion, but by understanding it, training it, facing it with reason instead of being drowned by it. We suffer more in imagination than in reality, he said. And we do. You rehearse arguments you'll never have. You relive moments that are already over. You tell stories that trap you in fear. You think about how they hurt you again and again and again, but they're not doing it anymore. You are. That's what Seneca saw so clearly, that the mind is powerful and dangerous when left unchecked. He practiced something called premeditatio malorum, visualizing things going wrong, not to suffer ahead of time, but to strip fear of its surprise. He said, he robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand. You imagine the hardship. You meet it on your terms. You prepare your breath, your values, your posture. So when it comes, it doesn't break you, it confirms you. Seneca believed we don't suffer most from pain. We suffer from resistance to pain, the belief that it's unfair, that it shouldn't have happened, that someone should have stopped it. He said, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. That's the fourth kind of control. Emotional courage, not the absence of grief or fear, but the refusal to be mastered by them. Control is not calm every second. It's learning how to anchor during the storm. Anger arises. You breathe, delay, question. Fear arrives. You ask, is it real or imagined? Grief comes. You let it pass through without letting it steal your voice. Seneca lost people. He lost power. Eventually, he was forced to take his own life. But he died with grace, because he had practiced it in thought thousands of times before. He had already chosen peace, and when the end came, he met it. Musonius Rufus, train or be trained. Musonius wasn't interested in how clever you sounded. He cared about what you did. He believed that philosophy meant nothing unless you lived it. Virtue exists in deeds, not in words, he said. Practice is more important than theory. Most people want to understand the truth. Musonius wanted you to embody it, because real control isn't about knowing what to do. It's about doing it when it's hard. You want to be calm? Train when you're irritated. You want discipline? Start in the small things. You want peace of mind? Then stop filling it with distraction. He taught that your habits are your philosophy, not your thoughts, not your Instagram quotes, not your favorite ancient book. Your habits. We are born with the seeds of virtue, Musonius said, but only training brings them to fruit. He didn't live in theory, he lived with simplicity. Simple food, simple dress, hardship, accepted willingly. Because the body that's trained to endure makes the mind harder to shake. Musonius saw weakness not as a moral failing, but a failure to train. Control isn't a gift, it's a discipline, he said. No man is free who is not master of himself. The food you eat, the media you consume, the time you waste, it all shapes you. And in a world full of noise, distraction is now a form of slavery. Your attention isn't just scattered, it's owned. Musonius would say, take it back. Wake earlier, say no more often. Embrace discomfort on purpose. Choose silence over entertainment, truth over flattery, practice over performance. Control is not a moment of strength, It's a life of training. You don't need to feel strong every day. You need to return to your practices until they shape you into someone who can be calm when most people collapse. Musonius didn't speak loud. He just lived clearly. And his life said this: if you want to be free, choose discipline over impulse, repetition over reaction, restraint over chaos. Because if you don't train, life will train you, but not toward virtue, toward noise, toward addiction, toward blame. So train every day in the small things, because they always become the big things.